Hello, I am Delusion Dispeller, and this is the reading of Safe People by me from Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, copyright 1995. Chapter 8, Why Do I Isolate Myself from People? Ted came to see me, John, for depression. A married Christian father, he was a professional man and deeply committed to his faith and family. He'd been depressed for several years, and neither spiritual discipline, faith jogging, nor patience had helped. He entered a group I was leading, which had people working on similar issues. After a little hesitation about talking in a group, he jumped in and got involved in the process. Ted was caring and empathetic to the pain of other people. He was well liked by others in the group. But one night, a member confronted him. Ted, I don't think I know where you hurt, so it feels like I don't know you at all. This sent Ted reeling. He figured that all of him was in the group, as he really cared for these people. He had not realized that he was that cut off from his own feelings. But the woman was right. I guess there's a part of me that shut down a long time ago, he said. What happened from that point on was very hard for Ted, but very important work. He started having memories of himself, a very small boy that he'd never had before, and they weren't fond memories. He remembered being left alone by his parents for extended periods. Too small to work, he would cry for a while, hoping that someone would come and pick him up, but no one ever came. Sorry, that was too small to walk, not too small to work. He was a little kid. I think that was the point, Ted told us, that I gave up on being loved. I can remember now very early in my life that it hurt too much to keep wanting love, to keep crying, and to keep reaching out. There was an empty blankness on the other end where a mom was supposed to be. At some point when I got older, I remember saying to myself, I'll stop needing people, and I did. Many of you have tried again and again to connect with safe people, only to find pain and failure, and now you've simply given up. You've stopped the attempt and the search. It's just not worth it anymore. As a client of mine explained, I really can survive on my own. It's much less messy than taking another risk to be hurt again. I couldn't disagree with her. This chapter explains the dynamics of withdrawal and isolation. Here, we'll help you understand the most important reasons you might have given up the fight to find the right kinds of friends, churches, and loved ones, and will help you see biblical solutions. So again, if you're offended by the Bible, this is the time you hit the little X and depart. All right. A broken heart. Ted, in the story above, suffered from a broken heart. For the rest of his life, until he went for help, Ted never again reached out for relational help. He learned to avoid those longings and needs, to stuff them deep inside his heart, and to cope with his broken heart. Ted's depression was the only thing that saved him. Otherwise, as he put it, I know myself. I'm absolutely sure I'd have gone on forever, totally out of relationship. That would have been a cakewalk for me. But his broken heart kept sending him the clinical signs that there was a problem, and he finally went to do something about it. Our hearts aren't all that strong. God has constructed us with certain needs and certain limitations. Our most basic and primary need is to be loved by God and people. We can put that need off, we can meet it in crazy ways, and we can try not to feel it, but it's simply a spiritual reality. Paul illustrated that need well when he wrote, the eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, and the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. 1 Corinthians 12:21. When our needs need to internalize or to take in others for sustenance is thwarted, we are injured. Part of our heart goes hungry. Just as internal organs begin to break down when we don't have enough food, our hearts start to break down when we do not receive love. Enough of this, and we enter the condition the Bible calls brokenheartedness. God has a special tenderness for this difficult condition. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. The brokenhearted person has, literally in the Hebrew, a burst heart. She has lost the ability to trust, to need, and to reach out for attachment. Many times she has been set up to be connected and receive love from people important to her, and each time something has broken down. Her deprivation is so great that she can no longer function relationally. The relationship breakdown happens in several ways: through abandonment, inconsistent attachment, and attack. Hang on just one second. Okay. Like Ted, some people are left emotionally by a significant person. This may be a parent, a spouse, or a friend. The important thing is that you have to be attached to be abandoned. That is, you had the person inside you for a period of time, and they mattered to you. Then, for various reasons, the person leaves. This can be physical abandonment, such as a mother leaving the home or dying, and it can be emotional, such as a depressed, overwhelmed, or alcoholic parent or spouse who simply removes the emotional supplies from the person. Whatever the situation, if the relationship is significant enough to us, we attempt to reach out for the lost person for a while. Then part of us despairs and loses hope, sinking deep inside us as a man sinks into quicksand. We lose our sense of expectation, of love, and eventually we lose our sense of need. This is the brokenhearted condition. I looked for sympathy, but there was none, for comforters, but I found none. Psalm 69:20. The aching heart simply turns itself off. Inconsistent attachment. A second cause of brokenheartedness comes from being loved in an unpredictable manner. You may have someone in your background who was a roller coaster. It was feast or famine for you, and you never knew what to expect. They were close, then either not there or enraged. Inconsistent connections break the heart in a different way than abandonment. Instead of longing for lost love, the in relationship with an inconsistent person is always waiting for the other shoe to drop. He thinks it's good now, but for how long? He always worries that the love given will be snatched away. How different inconsistent love is from the love of God, who shines the warm light of his love on us steadily and forever. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. John 10:29. Okay. I just want to make a little side note here. People with borderline personality disorder tend to evoke this response in us, where they're nice for a while, they seem to be coasting along on an even keel, and in our head or even to each other, we're saying, yep, this is good, but we'll see how long it lasts. So what they just said. Attack. We are never more vulnerable than when we need relationship. By its very nature, love means putting yourself out to someone and giving them the opportunity to hurt you. Love doesn't exist outside of risk. But there are those who really hurt the hurting. You may have someone in your life who criticized or even abused you for having the need for love. Some people, projecting their self-hatred on others, have a deep contempt for the needy. Some are self-centered. Some are sadistic, gaining pleasure in pain. For he never thought of doing a kindness, but hounded to death the poor and the needy and the brokenhearted. Psalm 109:16. If your need for love has been attacked, you probably learned very quickly how to shun relationship and find other ways to pass the time. Like a beaten dog scurries away from a hand that wants to pet it, the broken heart sounds an alarm for danger at any semblance of closeness. If you qualify as brokenhearted in any or all of these three categories, in your past or in your present, remember that God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. Realize that your isolation isn't really working for you, and begin searching for people who have enough constant, safe love inside to understand how hard this is for you. People that we'll describe in part 3. Safe people are out there, you just have to find them. Self-sufficiency. My 3-year-old son Benny is now firmly ensconced in the I can do it stage of life. The other day we were getting ready to go out to dinner, and everybody was ready but Benny. He'd gotten all ready except for his pesky Velcro strapped tennis shoes. They just wouldn't cooperate. Being the helpful father, actually the hurried father, I bent down to fasten his shoes for him, and he quickly pushed my hands away, protesting, I'll do it. And he meant it. So we negotiated. I put him in the car and let him put the shoes on while we were driving to the restaurant. It was win-win. Now, Benny is in love with autonomy, task mastery, individuation, and a lot of other developmental aspects of his growth. He is working on self-sufficiency, especially in the functional doing parts of life. But Benny's self-sufficiency is a little different in relational loving areas of life. Instead of task mastery, exhilaration, look ma, no hands, he is still dependent on attachment. He needs snuggles, holding, soothing, and comforting. He certainly disagrees a lot more, and he likes to spend more time away from his parents, but the need for connection is still there. That need for attachment will keep changing over time, and eventually, if things work out, Benny will have enough of us inside him. Literally, he'll have had enough of us. Then he will get his emotional needs met by peers and finally by his own family, but he'll continue to grow in his functional self-sufficiency. People who avoid relationships have problems with functional self-sufficiency, but with relational, not with functional self-sufficiency, but with relational self-sufficiency. The problem with the relational self-sufficient person is that he operates in his own relational world. He runs his own emotional affairs like a one-man business. His emotional philosophy is the following: I take care of my problems. I don't burden others with my problems. I can handle my problems myself, thank you. I'm fine, really. No, really, I'm fine. What's wrong here? God doesn't create us to be relationally self-sufficient. He loves us to need each other. Our needs teach us about love and keep us humble. True self-sufficiency is a product of the fall. If you've got the disease of self-sufficiency, you've probably had it a long time, and you've probably described it in positive terms like responsible, independent, and grown up. Indeed, self-sufficiency has lots of advantages because you get to avoid all the uncontrollable problems and risks that needy people can't get away from. Here are a few examples. You don't have to experience your incompleteness, which is painful. You don't have to go into the trouble of finding people to love you. You don't have to show other people the hurting, imperfect parts of yourself. You don't have to look anyone in the eye and say, I need you. You don't have to risk asking others to comfort and support you. You don't have to humbly receive what they offer in gratitude, and you don't have to do it again and again and again. No wonder giving up self-sufficiency is so difficult. Life seems to have more problems, many more problems, when your needs start leaking out. What to do? If your self-sufficiency is driving you away from relationship and into isolation, begin the process of confession. Confession is telling the truth, and the truth is you need people. The reason people say confession is good for the soul is because it brings unloved parts of our character to places of love. Find people that understand self-sufficiency. They'll know you can't feel your need for them, but they'll help you state your isolation, talk about the reasons you're disconnected, and discuss how hard it is to give up your independence. As you confess this problem to save people, a wonderful miracle happens. Over time, self-sufficiency melts and gives way to need. You are then reconciled not only to God and others, but also to yourself. Let the love God has provided begin to melt the cold, hard ice of your self-sufficiency. The inability to experience hunger. Call this problem spiritual anorexia. You've most likely read about the clinical condition anorexia nervosa, in which the individual starves herself for psychological reasons. The word anorexia actually means no appetite. If you talk to an anorexic about why she's not eating, she'll report, I'm just not hungry. And she means it. There are several causes for this condition, but it's obviously a dangerous one. Likewise, in the spiritual and relational area, some people literally cannot feel their hunger for relationship. They starve themselves when they should be connecting with others because often they aren't aware of their need. They are numb to their emptiness. Yet God created within us a hunger, a longing to be known and loved. This hunger functions exactly like physical hunger. It's a signal. It causes discomfort, a warning saying, get up and get connected. Your tank's empty. Hunger keeps us aware of our needs, and God responds to that. God sets the lonely in families. Psalm 68:6. Generally, this numbness develops over time as a protective measure. Ted mentioned at the beginning of the chapter had this condition. Spiritual anorexia occurs when the heart has been let down, disappointed, or hurt so many times that our need neurons simply stop firing. It's as if that part of our character is saying, why feel hunger? No one will be there anyway. And so part of us cuts off the sensation of need. It's easy to tell if you have this condition. Here are some of the classic hallmarks. I am uncomfortable with people and relaxed when alone. I don't get lonely whatever people mean by that. I spend time with people out of obligation or for functional reasons, tennis partner, commuting to work, etc. My fantasies of vacation always involve my doing something fun by myself. Now, God also created us to spend time alone. We need to get away. But spiritual anorexia dulls the senses so much that we can be in real emotional trouble, depressed, ready to act out compulsively, or worse, And the idea that I might need to call someone will never even occur to the spiritual anorexic. For them, relationship isn't a hunger, it's an unneeded option. If this is your condition, God wants to waken a sleeping part of you. He wants you to hunger and thirst for righteous and loving people. Matthew 5:6.